what? You want to fight crime? Let's get dangerous.
And yes, it is. It is showtime once again, and welcome to another episode of From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher. I'm your host, Joe D. McPhee here. We got brand new comic book pickups for the week. We got a good topic to talk about here, but nevertheless, we always have the business end of each and every show to always talk about first, which always starts out with the fact that Stupid O'Clock is 1 hour into this show. If we decide to go into a second hour, and then that's followed up by Last Man Standing, all happening on East Coast time, 11 o'clock and 1 a.m. respectively. Then you get a little bit of a respite until Monday, which is Monday, this upcoming Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You got Never Mind the Furthermore with Nicholas Tockert. And let's not forget the most important show that happens on Thursdays, which is Comic Book Spectrum, right here on this channel, 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, 8 o'clock Eastern. I need to have to remind myself to keep fixing that time here. I just haven't updated the graphic here. But nevertheless, we are at that point in time once again where we start our show with new comic book pickups for the week. And let's just say this stack is rather interesting here. Well, it's that time again for new comic book pickups of the week. I got another stack of books that came in, so we're going to get right to it before we can get to storage here. This week we got a Legionnaires #1, still in polybag with the trading card still up in it. One of the stories in this book is what made me get this book a long time ago, so now I got a better copy of it. It is Youngblood Strike Files #6. Yes, every once in a while an Image comic book has maybe a decent story that's worthwhile here. We got another Magnificent Miss Marvel #3. Birds of Prey #6. Trying to get the glare out of the screen here. We finally got a X-Men and the Micronauts issue #4. This one I might, save for a later time to read. I'm going to put it in storage for right now. But this is the Milk Wars Part 3, Shade the Changing Women with Wonder Woman. We got Gen 13 Interactive #1. Gen 13 #13A. Now that felt like a very thin issue, but that's how it was back in the day. Here comes the Big People #1. This is, I believe, the A cover here. Those who are in the know knows why this book is significant. X Factor 50, X Factor 213, Avengers 36. She #1 Fan Appreciation Edition. So that's a good issue to have. Extreme X-Men #3. Howard the Duck #8 and 17. So the Howard the Duck run is coming together here. We got another copy of X-Men 2099 number 1. And I'm getting closer to having all of the original Darkwing Duck here, because the original Darkwing Duck was only 4 issues here. This is issue number 3 in that very first run of it. We ended up getting a Fearless number 1. Don't mind the markings on it, because that all just the one seller just likes using the marker. And this is one that they gave me for my birthday here, which is X-Men Red number 8. G.I. Joe number 3, newsstand. So I'm happy that I got that here. And please mind the tape on that one, because it is a not safe for work. It is certified, certified 1937 of 8,000. But this is Bloodfire and Helena. This is the new copy version of it, and yes, it does say this: buy me to see my goods. So that's a good thing here. We got Peter Parker Ultimate Spectacular Spider-Man number 76. I'm getting closer and closer to having the first, I think I got them now, the first 3 beta reveals here. This is door 338. And you're going to see this book twice in this one. We got another copy of Marvel Chiller's Tigra. The first, this is the second Tigra. I believe that there was a giant-sized Chillers that had the first Tigra, but there's one of those here. The original Inhumans number 1. Film Force Up Close number 11. Film Force 78. Another copy of 78. Film Force Up Close number 5. So we're getting close to having the majority of the Film Force Up Close too. We got Iron Man 2020 number 1. Not certain the significance of that story. We got another X-Men 460. Black Lightning number 8. And then we got a small smattering of books that I'm trying to complete the series on, starting with Dazzler, which we got issue 3, 5, 6, another copy of 6, 7, that's a newsstand, 8, twice, 11, 12, another copy of 14, 15, and 40. And we're over a little bit over halfway through the stack here. Take the sticky note off of that. We got Spider-Woman number 11, number 13, getting the glare out, 13, 37, and all of this is from volume 1, and number 40. So we got those Spider-Women, and like I stated before, here is the second one in the run. This one is a better copy of it here, which is Marvel Chillers number 3, either the first or second Tigra. I believe that has the origin of her. Now we're getting close to having all of Mystery Quarterly now, because there's issue number 1. So we got Mystery Quarterly number 1. And now I have issue number 8. I think I'm only missing like 2 issues from the quarterly series now, but I could check a little bit later. We got a sealed Darker Image number 1 with the Deathblow card up in it. We got Gen 13 24 and 39. And from the most recent run of Gen 13 32. And that is the pickups for this week here. We got more books coming in over the next week. Like I said, October is going to be kind of a big month here. I believe so far that this might be the smallest stack coming in, and just to show you how many books. That's normally that's about a big stack in any other month compared to last week and this week. I think this might be the smallest one out of all of them. So I'll give it back over to the studio as of right now before we could continue our discussion here. So we'll talk. See you in a few moments here in the studio. And there we go. That was comic book pickups for the week here. And yep, I was somewhat right with the giant sized creatures one being first tiger release. That is being confirmed by Parallax. And welcome into the show here. Guess what? Tonight's show is going to be kind of weird, and weird because it's almost renting material, to be quite honest here. Because again, it's not one of those things that I like to like really harp on, but because I see so much negativity out there, it's like let's go ahead and talk about it and put kind of a more positive spin on it because I'm getting to that point where it's almost like getting older. I'm seeing things of how things are being sold and being presented to people, and it just doesn't seem right at all. And if you paid attention to the title, we're going to talk about it. It's like, are we using the term Grail correctly when it comes to comic collecting? And the term Grail is not really a common phrase, more so than anything else, because for something to be a Grail is something that you hold near and dear to yourself. So when it comes to comic book collecting, it makes me wonder, especially with these sellers that always subscribes to, hey, I'm here to help you collect your Grail. But the thing about it is, a lot of Grails out there, a lot of the books that people consider Grails are not, in a sense, a true Grail. And when I say a true Grail, because of the simple fact that it's not as rare and unique as what people put out there. Perfect example is like there's a couple of shows that I watch that would say, a good grill to get is a ASM 300, which is wrong. That is more of a common book. But I understand why it would be a grill to some other person, but not to a person like me. And when you bill yourself as a seller of grails, I come to you and say, hey, what do you have in this title? And you come to me, it's like, well, I don't really have that title. That's a red flag or a big old question mark. It's like you're supposed to be a pursuer of grails, but yet you don't have or don't have a lead on how to get X, Y, and Z books. Interesting. So it makes me wonder, are we using that term correctly? And I know Parallax has already started here. It started here. It's like, yeah, there are two types of grails. The full-fledged grail, like Amazing Fantasy 15, Batman 181, Fantastic Four #1, X-Men #1, All-Star Comics 8. What was it? Detective. I forgot the number of Detective Comics. The Detective Comics, Action Comics 1. Books like that. That's a full-fledged grail. And then there's a personal grill, like you and I love Spider Woman. So Marvel Spotlight 32 is a personal grill and not it's not super common and pricier. I have one. Yeah, we have personal grills. I mean, we do all have personal grills. Like some of my personal grills, it's like my greatest adventures number 80, first Doom Patrol. That's a personal grill. Another one, GI Joe #1, personal grill. GI Joe #2, first print, personal grill. Only reason that's a personal grill because I grew up with second print. I was like, when I bought it, I bought the second print. So when I finally got a chance to get first print of that, that was like a personal grill. It's not a hard book to find. It's not a pricey book to get. But when I think of grails, and this is the key thing, when I think of grails, Wonder Woman #1, All Star Comics #8, Sensation Comics #1, Fantastic Four #1, Those are the types of books that I think of as true grails. And those are the harder to find and harder to come by books. And, when you minimize those to personal grails, such as ASM 300 or even Giant Size X-Men 1. Giant Size X-Men 1 to me is still more of a personal grail than a full-fledged grail in a lot of aspects. Now, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that aspect of it, but you have to look at it from the bigger standpoint here, both on how people are trying to sell books to you, as well as the availability of the book. And a lot of times, sellers do not really talk about availability of the book. Just like, for example, ASM 300. People don't realize that there's over 50,000 copies on the census combined for CBCS and CGC. That's just graded. We're not even talking about raw. There's a lot more out there that's raw too. So it's not really a hard to come about book. It's just pricey. Because it's pricey, it seems like it's more of a grail. It's not like how I could put like the price that I have to pay for like a good one would be, I think it is it's either Wonder Woman number 8 or number 6. Wonder Woman runs for president. That book is not just pricey, it is a lot less books known to be in existence than ASM 300. Then again, I'm looking at a book from like the 1940s as opposed to something that was around in the 1980s or yeah, 80s. No, take that back. Yeah, I was right, 80s. Late 80s, about 89, 90, right about there. So there's likelihood that there's a lot more of those books around than the ones from the 1940s. And it's a shame that books from like the 1930s, 40s, and 50s have to play, second fiddle to more modern books in this aspect of grails. You know, is Ultimate Fallout 4 really a grail? Not so much to a person like me. And this is the other aspect, since I'm going to bring it up here, and Parallax, you could chime in on this as well. The other aspect of Grail that I have to look at is the generation that you're born in. Ultimate Fallout 4 could be technically a Grail for somebody that was born in the 2000s or 2010s. Because again, that would have been something that they grew up with more so. Does it still make it more of a personal Grail? Probably so. But in the standpoint of if you were born in 2010, 2010 or 2020, a book like Ultimate Fallout 4 could be a grail because it's been so far out longer than you have, been alive in such a way where it feels the same way that a All Stars Comic 8 feels to me as a Wonder Woman collector. The book came in the 1940s. I was born in 75. Even now, trying to chase a copy of that, I don't have 6 digits to buy one at a decent clip here. And Parallax says, yeah, Ultimate Fallout 4 is not a grill. It is heavily printed and easily obtainable. It's a big key, but not a grill in my opinion. And that's why I said it's like that's the reason why I brought it up. It's like it depends on your generation when you grew up. Because somebody that was born in 2010 or between 2010 and 2020, it could be. Well, if you're born in 2020, you're only 4 years old, so it really would seem kind of off fitting. But again, for a person like you and me, it's definitely not a grail because we know the print runs of that, and then the fact that there was second, third, and fourth printings of it, you could get one if you really wanted. If you really wanted one. Same thing for things like Something Killing the Children, House of Slaughter, and all these books that goes into these third, fourth, and fifth printing because we have to have variant. covers type deals. They're not grails. Might be personal grails, and I'm not belittling the fact that you personally want to hold one up to a grail standard. That's near and dear to your heart, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, it's not the same as having a X-Men 1 or Fantastic Four #1 or Amazing Fantasy 15. The list can go on and on and on and on and on and on for the older books that are out there. And that's the weirdness about the day and age of comic book collecting that we're in here. We need to have these types of dialogues now, because if you consider Ultimate Fallout 4 your personal grail, that's fine. But to have it on the same pedestal as an Amazing Fantasy 15, I have to question your judgment. To have ASM 300 on the same pedestal as Amazing Fantasy 15, I have a problem, because you're comparing two different generations of books, two different eras of books. One where we know that there's still available issues, copies of that issue still around, and the fact that it's been reprinted recently, as opposed to other books that may have a reprinting here and there, but those reprints are not on the same level as value as the more modern stuff. Because why? Those modern books are inflated. And partly to that is like, some of us collectors are partially default for that. Instead of waiting and everything, we fall into that FOMO category, and we inflate the prices a little bit because we just can't wait, the 2 to 3 months to wait to see if the price falls. It's weird that a book comes out, on the week that it comes out for it to be released from distributors. You buy it at cover price, and then the following week it's almost 100 times the price. And I have said this several times before, this priced a lot of people out of collecting comics here. It's almost as if it's becoming more of a wealthier person's hobby now, as opposed to a common man's hobby. I mean, people read for entertainment. Now we're up here buying all these higher price variants and all this other stuff because of supposedly collectability, but in actuality, it's just because of the simple fact of speculation. We're trying to speculate which stuff has more value than other things here. And welcome on in, Don. And you probably caught me in the middle of talking about tonight's topic, in which is, are we using the term Grail correctly when it comes to this hobby? And we have to put it in the actual perspective of what is a Grail and what is a true. Well, I should say true Grail. What is the baseline definition of a Grail? What is a definition of a personal Grail? And how they different? How they different, and why we shouldn't put some personal Grails on the same pedestal as what it be a baseline Grail. Because a baseline Grail, like I said, it's like if for some reason you happen to run across a first print copy of Action Comics 1, you'll be jumping in the aisles, because even in its worst condition, it's a 5-figure book, at least 5 figures or more. If you come across a bad copy of X-Men 1, it's at least 4 figures. It's just, one of those things that, because of the lack of availabilities for getting these issues, it warrants that price, as opposed to like I pick on ASM 300 because everybody talks about that so much, and just like it's nauseating. It's just nauseating here. Yeah, most people probably aren't. Yeah, yeah, not by the standard definition. Yeah. And we all got personal growth. I'm not talking. I'm not going to knock people for having their own personal growth. Like for example, the very first Punisher issue in Amazing Spider-Man. That was that a couple. Like I have a couple of friends that was their Grail. I don't knock them for that. It's now slowly becoming one of those harder to find books now. That's a personal Grail of theirs. I get it. You know, Giant Side X-Men 1 is still one of my personal Grails, but it's not as hard to get. And mind you, I have multiple reprints of that book. When you really think about it, that they reprinted it just recently, and I think it was in 2020. They just recently reprinted it. Classic X-Men #1 was a reprint of it. They had all these special editions where they reprinted Giant Size X-Men #1. So I have read it, own it in so many different formats, but it's still not the original first printing of it. If I get one, I get one. If I don't, I don't. But that's still a personal Grail of mine. Like I said, I was lucky to buy a copy of My Greatest Adventures 80 when I had the opportunity to for the low price. I believe I paid like what 130 for it back in the 90s, and it was considered low grade. It was sold to me as like a 1.5 or something like that. And I finally got it graded and came back a 4.5 after they pressed it and everything. So I was quite happy with that because that's the grade bump and everything. It worked out for me, and every time I see that book, even on eBay, it's like it's inflated. The price is so inflated, but even in the raw, I'm looking at that book, even with the grade that I got with CGC, is still in the high hundreds, getting high hundreds, maybe four figures. And when I say four figures, we're talking about less than somewhere less than 1,500. But that book is slowly climbing because those books are getting harder and harder to find, especially the beginnings of Doom Patrol from when it switched over from My Greatest Adventures to Doom Patrol. I believe it didn't become Doom Patrol until like what issue 84, if when it actually officially became Doom Patrol from My Greatest Adventures. But that's a whole different thing here. But saying all that to say, it's like, when dealing with sellers that says, hey, we're selling grails here, it's like, you really are not. If you're not selling like, you know, golden age or before, or the harder to find silver age, you're really not selling grails. You're really selling what you think people want as personal grails. The 1990 Spider-Man #1 is not really a grail; it's a personal grail. It may be a personal grail for some people because it's attainable, but it's not on the same grail as the 1960s Amazing Spider-Man #1, or even Amazing Fantasy 15. It's not on that same level, and it's just weird that in this day and age, the way comic books are being sold, that we even have to have this type of discussion here. That because of the concept of FOMO, that you're playing on people's fear of missing out on a opportunity to get a decent copy of a book that is rarely available. And this is kind of like one of those things where you know I shouldn't say as much, but the way I'm looking at it is sellers are selling what I consider common books more often as if they were rare, and they really are not. Like the stuff that I typically pick up on claim sales and stuff is really, I wouldn't say hard to find stuff, but it's just uncommon. I shop more for uncommon stuff. And when I say uncommon, I'm not talking about, oh, I can't go into any old comic book store to get it. It's more along the lines like if I go to any average comic book store, they may have maybe one, two, or three issues splattering around, here and there. Or they might have you know, a whole bunch of that title, but it's a whole bunch of the same issue of that title. Because again, it's just their clientele does not pick up those type of books that often. And sometimes they might get, I hate to say, stuck with books like that. And because, nobody picks them up all that much, I could come in and probably pick them up, in like a dollar box or 50-cent box for next to nothing, and they're nowhere to wear, or they bank on the fact that it's like, oh yeah, this was once popular, so we have to keep the price high on it, hoping that somebody would just go ahead and pay them what they paid for it back when they first came out. And it doesn't work out that way. But to put the whole thing about making the whole plea for your personal grail, it's kind of weird. I mean, Parallax said it best. Parallax said it best here. You know, her and I, we had a couple shared personal grails. One on what was the Marvel Spotlight 32. What I think mine was like a 6.0 that I ended up getting for like $100 from a store that she patronized from, and I think she got a better copy than that. I mean, it's not hard to come by. That book is not really hard to come by. It's just more along the lines of the fact that not the average person look for it. And then when the character becomes popular again, the price skyrockets because of market manipulation and speculation. And even now, I'm still trying to collect, the first volume of Jessica Drew Spider Woman. I'm getting closer to doing that, just like I'm getting closer to complete Dazzler before all this key speculation comes back. And if a certain so-called singer does get the nod to become this particular character, yeah, we're going to see a lot of those books just spike in price for no apparent reason, regardless of her performance or not. Why? Because her fan base is just that rabid. But that's going back into speculation. It does not necessarily mean that it's somebody's personal grail, because if they're not reading the books in that aspect, it can't really be that much of a personal grail other than the fact that you just want it. That's another question. Just because you want a book, does that make it your grail? Wanting a book does not necessarily mean that you have a deep place in your heart for it. Like for example, if I had to lose out on my copies of X-Men God Love Man Kills, I had to get another one, another first print one of it. It would be essentially a personal grail of mine to have the first print of it, because that goes way back. I got my first copy, first print a long time ago. I mean, I wrote a high school paper on it. I did a whole bunch of things, did a whole bunch of research dealing with a lot of the themes and topics that's in that particular book. So yeah, it has meaning to me more than just what's in the story. But just wanting a book because it's just a popular thing to have doesn't necessarily mean that you have a special place for it. Let's see. Yeah, hello rabbit like dogs. Yep. Yep. And I can see, in that case, Dazzler number one going from being like a $20 to $40 book to maybe like $1,000 book instantly in a 9.8. Going way over $1,000 might be, $2,500 to $3,000 if that happens. Because the spec value would be based upon her fan base, not because of the character or how well she portrayed the character or interest in the character. It would just be because her fan base would want to have a copy of that to be a rabid fan of hers. Let alone let her start signing those comics. And we go from like a $1,000 to $3,000 books to probably a $10,000 book. I'm just saying that's just the way that speculation works in this modern age. Is it a good thing? Probably not. Probably not. Do I fault anybody for it? No. That's just the nature of the business. That's just the way it is. Just like how people were banking on the Robert Downey Jr. and the Iron Man, and now once he fulfilled the whole thing about playing Doom, you're going to see everybody rushing over to him with all these different Doom covers to get him to sign it before they could have like this $5,000 payday on a signed slab. Doesn't make a difference to me as a collector? No, because I wouldn't fall for it. I wouldn't fall for it. I'm not that big of a fan of. Well, I shouldn't say not that big of a fan of Robert Downey Jr. He's a good actor, but I'm not that type of fan to be like, I got to get his signature, got to get this grade for I could flip this book to make this book to have value. To me, the story alone, it's like there have been some great Doctor Doom stories that could stand on their own without his signature. But people want to spec, and that's the whole thing, because the signature, him signing a book, is more rare than the book itself. Then you know, whatever makes the money. You can't fault people for making money. I mean, if somebody thinks of it and people want it and people buy it, so be it. You can't be angry about that. Yeah. So with the personal grails, do you care about condition or gray, or just the fact that you're acquiring in your collection? Me personally, it's only by the means without spending a lot. Yeah, that's the whole thing about grails. It's like the first thing about getting a grail is just to be able to get it. It doesn't matter at first the condition. Because if you worry about condition more so than just having it in your collection, then is it really a grail to you? You have to think about it in that aspect. And that's a great question to ask there, Don, because I agree. Because for me, my greatest adventures number 80, like I said, I bought it under the auspice that it was a 1.5. It turned out that once I got it graded, it was a 4.5. I didn't care about the grade. My X-Men number 1, I paid $1,500 for it. It was a beat up copy. I finally eventually got it graded, came back a 1.5. Am I going out there looking for something better? No. I'm happy with that. Because why? It's in my collection. I have one. That's the whole thing. Getting it the first time around is the key. The reason why it is a grail. Now, after you have one, if you want to go beyond that to upgrade it, if you have the means to do so, do it. But no, you don't have to worry about condition when it comes to that aspect here. Then, I do have one copy. I hunt for the highest grade I can find or get a slab. See, I'm quite the opposite. I just try to find it raw first, preserve the one that I do buy. If I really go into the whole preservation thing, I get that one slab. And if it's a grade that I could live with, I go no further. If it's a grade that I can't, I go and try to find a better copy. But that one stays in my collection. Even if I did get a better copy of it, it still stays in my collection. It doesn't matter at that point. Yeah, every variant cover now is a grail for these new bros. Yeah. Yeah, because again, it's because it's a grail because it's my favorite artist. Okay, I can accept that if that's your favorite artist. It's like everybody who's a Scotty Young collector. I don't have a problem with you. Heck, I even got Scotty Young slabs. those are books that I kind of like, but I don't go out my way for it. If I do get Scotty Young, copies of Scotty Young covers, eventually when it comes around to it, if I have the extra money and it's worth the while to get it slapped, I do. But I'm not going out there as saying that it's a grail of mine. But if you're that much of a fan, yeah, I can see that being a personal grail. Let's see. Yeah, but Don's grails are like 90s foil books. Well, you have to be mindful. The 90s had a lot of gimmick books. And that was kind of like one of the things that I could honestly say. One of the gimmick books that I still hold on to from the 90s, and I need to find another copy of it. If you can remember, they did a Onslaught #1 that was made out of 24 karat gold. I ended up paying $99 for it with the COA. That book is worth, that book is in dollar boxes now. You might be able to find some in dollar boxes because nobody talks about it. But back then, people don't really spec as much like that. But I can see why people do that. Yeah, it's like the do this bro thing about me is that I buy one and stock one. That's normal. That's normal. That's normal. But then again, you're talking to a person that will buy, multiple copies of the same issue just to be like, nobody else wanted it. I might as well give it a home. You'll be surprised if, and Parallax could vouch for it. You'd be surprised if like, hey, I don't have this issue of Wonder Woman. You need one? Okay, fine. You can have this one. Yeah, don't be hating. Don't be hating on his 90s foils. And yeah. Yeah, I'm a Jim Belant collector. Ergo, I have first published science. Yeah, yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But all that falls up under personal grail, not the hard to find true definition of what one is. Sergeant Rock 393 backup story. Huh. Well, refresh my memory on that one. Refresh my memory on that one about the Sergeant Rock. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that it is what it is. If I find it funny that people are up here making what I consider just a key issue of Grail. Not saying that it's a personal Grail, but it's like, oh, this is a Grail book. It's like, no, it's not. It's just a key issue. It's just not. It's not a. It's not. It's not something that it's like, oh, I read it like 12 years ago and I don't recall it. I was just trying to figure out what was the significance of bringing up Sergeant Rock 393. I just trying to figure out what was the significance because you brought it up. You brought it up as if that was something to make a point on. So that's why I was like, oh, let me ask because I have no clue what the backup story for that one. I mean, if I do have to talk about personal grails that I still have that still left, Lois Lane, I believe 106 is still a personal grail. That's a personal grail that I have because that was a story before its time. I got my boy who collects a better copy of the boy who collects Spider-Man and from Amazing Spider-Man, so I don't have to worry about that now. I'm doing personal grails, not grail. So personal grails. I think that's kind of it. Because all my other goals of right now is just completing the series completing the rest of the series that I have in my collection. So pretty much, Spider Woman Volume One, Dazzler. I'm one issue away from completing Jaguar. I'm two issues away from completing Mystery Quarterly, 4 issues away from completing their original Mystery run, things like that. You know, none of that stuff is like personal grail as far as one particular issue, but completing those runs and having it in a condition where it is readable and preservable is the major thing here. And the She-Hulk graphic novel was his first novel that I showed you. When you talk about Jim, you talk about Jim. You're talking about. Give me 1 second here. This one. I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it. I know which one you're talking about. The She-Hulk graphic novel. I did find this. I found another copy of that. So my She-Hulk one was with this one. So I was like, oh, I found this one. I don't see my She-Hulk, but yeah, 248 from Curbo. The other. Oh, so you got a copy of The Kid Who Collects Spider-Man. Again, another story that before its time. That was a very deep story. Even though he fought, I believe it was Thunderball from the Wrecking Crew in that issue. It was the fact that the side story with the kid in the hospital and how he vis out and how Peter visited him in the hospital was more of the story than anything else. Honestly, I don't even care about Universal Grails. I don't consider them universal. I really consider them more of like what would be a grail in most cases. I mean, Universal, I don't see like there's one standard book title or particular issue that would be the grail. There's no such thing as that. There's not something that's universal. It will be more along the lines like, oh yeah, this particular book is harder to get because of the lack of availability, and it is sought after by the biggest amount of people who collect that said character or title. Now, when you look at it in those terms, that's the reason why people make the argument for Amazing Spider-Man 300. But then again, there's enough of them out there where it does not hold a candle to Amazing Fantasy 15 or Spider-Man 1. It's just one of those things. It's just one of those things. It's just I wouldn't consider it. I don't wouldn't use the term universal in that aspect here. See, my collection is for me and the books that I like and care about, not the huge keys or grails that everybody else is. Exactly. Exactly. I'm not a Batman fan. So why would I care about a Batman key? Now, unless that Batman key is dealing with Selena Kyle, aka Catwoman, I could care less. I could care less. Or another character that I care about, I could care less. There's very few Batman issues that I would actually buy and want to keep. There's not too many things you could put a Batman in front of me and be like, meh. You put a Wonder Woman issue in front of me, I would be like, okay, I have three of these or I have four of these. Why do I need another one? You know, that's a difference to me. Yep. Come to think of it, I just got off of Rosie's show just before I started this live stream here, and I just about for $2 a book got all of volume three from him. That six issue run of Huntress at $2 a pop. While everybody else is trying to sell those books for like $4 and $5, it's like, it's kind of like one of those things to me. You get them where you could get them. You get the books where you could get them. You don't always have to pay the big dollar amounts to get books that you want and love and the stories that you want to read. Kind of like in the new comic book pickups for the week. People don't realize the significance of Here Comes the Big People. Now, my question to Don and Parallax: what is the significance? Why is that issue so important? If you consider it, if you consider the reasoning important, and that's only from a collector's standpoint here. And if you guys don't know, I'll go ahead and tell you. So I'm just waiting for them to say it's like I give up. I don't know. So he said, "What's the question?" Okay, the question was, why is Here Comes the Big People number one so important in collecting it? Say no clue. Okay, so now I can tell you. It is the first title that Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Conner did outside of Image. That's the reason why it's so important. But not a lot of people know that. And even with people who are fans of Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Conner would sleep on that book because of the simple fact that they probably wouldn't be aware of it. But that was the first book that they did outside of Image. Now, mind you, I believe that their first book that they did of their own property, sort of speak, was the Pro, and that was published by Image. Here Comes the Big People was done by Event Comics, so that's the reason why it was so significant. It was the first book that they published outside of the normal big three of their own property. So that's the reason why it was important. But people would sleep on stuff like that. And to me, that's kind of more of the reason why I try to preserve the copies that I do get. Because that way somebody could come back 20 and 30 years later and be like, hey, have you heard of, Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Carter? It's like, yeah, they did this, they did this, they did this. Oh, by the way, I have a copy of this here. It was just one of the few things that they did outside of Image and Marvel and DC stuff. You know, things like that have a significance here. You know, when people like even with Paralife would say about Jim, Jim did a lot of stuff outside the Catwoman and the Tarot and all the other stuff too. Same thing with John Byrne. And to me, it's like I said, the what happened to me with Chris Claremont would always stick with me for the rest of my life. And I know I told you guys the Chris Claremont story here. Hey, there he is. There's Aaron. How's it going, Aaron? Hopefully, the topic, is one of those things that kind of fits for today. Um, we've been talking about the concept of why the term grill, if the term grill is actually being used correctly in today's comic book collecting scene here. And I believe that, the aspect of a grail for older books is not, but for personal stuff, for our own personal grails, yeah. But we have to also be mindful of not falling into the traps of sellers that say that we sell grails, but yet they don't have any clue about a lot of the stuff that should be grails, that they're using more of the FOMO more so than anything else. Yeah, great, my friend. Yeah, your package went out. Oh, cool. So all of the Birds of Prey came out. It's coming this way. Plus the Rocketeer movie edition. Yeah, it is more of a subjective term than objective. Yeah, I mean it's more subjective. But the thing about it is that when a seasoned collector thinks of a Grail, they think of things like Amazing Fantasy 15, All Star Comics #8, Action Comics #1. The more modern collector thinks of Ultimate Fallout 4, which would be more of a personal grail than, the bigger, harder to find books per se. Yep. Yeah, you could tell. It's like you could tell me Oh, you want to know the Chris Claremont story? Okay, let's let's set the Wayback Machine here, Sherman, back to 1994 at Wizard World Chicago. Friends and I went there to Wizard World Chicago, and they was doing a signing. And guess who was there? Chris Claremont. Chris Claremont was doing signings, and this was back in the day when writers and artists were signing stuff for free. Yes, free 99. I missed those days. So Chris Claremont was doing a signing and everything. So I was getting the line. And it's like, as the line was going along and everything, the other was like, well, you could only get 3 books signed. Each person can only get up a limit of 3 books. No, I take that back. It was 5 books. It was 5 books because I got 3 X-Men books. Well, actually 4 X-Men books signed. And my 5th book, and I will show it to you here. Give me 1 second here. And the 5th book was people did not realize that Chris Claremont actually wrote this book for Defiant Comics. So, me being the oddball that I was, he's just going around, down the line, X-Men book, X-Men book, X-Men book. So he gets to my 5 books. So it's like signed the first X-Men book, signed the second X-Men book, signed the third one, signed the fourth one, and then he gets to this. He's like, wait a second. If you don't mind, can I hold up the line for a second? It's like, sure, why not? It's like, what's the problem? I would like to take a chance to reacquaint myself with this book. It's been a while since I've seen one. So he stops the whole signing to read this book before he signed it. He says, like, not too many people realized I actually wrote this book. And he's like, it's been that long since he's seen it. And people were getting mad at me because he literally took the time to read it. And I was like, wow. So there's this John Hancock right there, Chris Claremont. One of these days, I'm going to get it verified and graded. But yeah, that's the that's the Chris Claremont story in a nutshell. Having people upset at me because I realized that he did books outside of X-Men and he stopped to read the full issue while they're at the table, which held up the line for about 15 minutes. So that's the Chris Claremont story. Yep, then Parallax is saying hello. What? Oh, so you did not know about Prudence and Caution? Yes, this was one of the few books that Chris Claremont did outside the X-Men during the time that he was at Marvel. All I know about Defiant is Dark Dominion and War. Yeah, I knew about Warriors of Plasma, but that story didn't appeal to me. But when I found out that Claremont was doing other books like this, so I picked this up. I actually picked this up. I got like issue. I think I only have like issue 1 and 2. I think it only ran like 5 issues. But yeah, that's great. Prudence and caution. That's great, my man. Yeah, I mean those. That's the story here. Yeah, like we said, follow your heart and the right people notice. Exactly. Causing traffic jam. Yeah, that one was an unintentional traffic jam. I did not expect that happen. Oh, you have both of them. So it was only two. It was only 2 issues. Yeah, because yeah, it was only 2 issues. But yes, that's the Chris Claremont story. He actually held up a signing at the Marvel booth just to read this particular issue of Prudence and Caution before he signed it because nobody else knew about that book. He's like, I have not seen this book in a long while. Is it okay for me to read it? I was like, my jaw dropped. And I was like, I'm honored. I was more like, I honored. And I turned around, looked at everybody else, and was like, I want my book signed. Move. I got other people that I need to see to get signatures. It's like, that's not my fault. It's like, how's the story, Leia? I know Joe loves it. Yeah, it was that one, and I could tell you another situation that happened to a friend of mine dealing with the Todd father, and this comes back down to never ask a person their true feelings about something. But I really wish I could meet McFarlane personally. But it was just random that we was at a panel and he said what he said, and Todd didn't like it. He got up and he left the panel. Well, this is what happened. This was Wizard World 94, because this happened in 95, 94. Image had a big to do at Wizard World 94. So at this one panel, they were going, they was asking people about what they thought about Spawn and what they thought about the upcoming toys and stuff that was coming out for Spawn. So, they were, asking people at random. They were bringing a microphone around to the different people and everything. So they got to my friend Dennis here, and they asked us like, "Well, what do you think here?" And it's like, "Well, I have no opinion one way or the other. If the toys are good, they're going to be good, and people going to buy it. Outside of that, it's like there's nothing more that I could really say. It's like, if I'm not, that much of a fan to really be overly excited about it, but if it's good, it will be good. People will buy them, people will spend their money on it, and so be it. topic before I looked at, listened to it, heard it, kind of got a little bit upset because he told the truth. He got up and left the panel after that explanation because everybody else was like kissing his behind. And he just pretty much says like, "Hey, I'm not that big of a fan, but if the toys are good, they're going to be good. People are going to spend their money on it." The Yep, he was out. He was out. out. He was there pretty much to hear how all the people were looking forward to and clamoring for it, and to have somebody to telling the truth like that. He just at that point in time he couldn't take it. Now he could have been in a bad mood. I don't know what mood he was in, but like I said, I never met the guy personally. I could only go based upon how things were going at that time, and we don't know if there was any problems with behind the scenes with the showrunners with Wizard or anything to that magnitude. But that comment just sent them over the edge. I just don't know. Well, you have to understand 90s image, 90s image, the people who found the image, they had egos. They had major egos. You have to understand. It's like Marvel made them a lot of money. They decided to branch out on their own. They were, trying to get over on their popularity, and to have somebody who's going like meh would set them off. It's like I have met Liefeld. Had I had a sit down talk with him like I had with Neil Adams? No. But I met him. Was I impressed with him? No. But again, the 90s were the 90s at the time. I wasn't a big fan of McFarlane. I wasn't a big fan of Spawn. I wasn't a big fan of Youngblood. I was a fan of Team Youngblood. I was a fan of Lady Supreme. I was a fan of Liberty Metals at the time. And, those were the types of things that, it's like when it came to image, those were the things that I was into. And I was also a fan of Glory. Now, with that being stated, it's like Liefeld only did covers for Glory. He did not do any of the interiors or the story. Same thing with Team Youngblood. So people would think it's like, well, if you're a fan of Team Youngblood, you got to be a fan of the original series that he was over, or Brigade. I was like, nope, could care less, because Team Youngblood made sense and Youngblood didn't. But that's just me. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Todd Father, but he was or is a slugger. He will fight, and yeah. I mean, the thing about it is that what I find faults with Spawn as a story, I don't find fault with him as far as how he developed everything and how he saw the future for any comic book franchise. I disagree with him and his synopsis of the toy industry when it comes to female characters. I disagree with that, but I give him props for his initiative as far as branching beyond the pages of comic books into toy and marketing and movies and everything to that magnitude. I give him props for that. I give him a lot of respect for that. Heck, I give him a lot of respect for what happened in that one in the one Marvel video where they're up here. It's like him. It was him, Liefeld, and Stan Lee just before they left Marvel, where it's talking about what it's like to be in the Marvel bullpen. And they was designing characters and everything. And Stan was up here trying to take the images and pictures and stuff like that on the video. And they were like, it was almost like it was like you think that was a joke, but I think it was serious that they were up here. It's like, nope, this is about to be a property of Marvel if you keep on drawing. Yeah, McFarlane takes no guff, and his girl figures don't sell viewpoint is so 1984. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it just I disagree with it. But then again, he's always thinking from the standpoint of the wrong type of collector. And I have to say it this way: it may be 1984 mentality, but if there wasn't the fact that there were, if I could say, dolls going all the way back to the beginnings of Barbie and all this other stuff, we would never have action figures. If the concept of dolls for girls didn't take off, we would never had action figures. Period. So to say that girl figures don't sell, you have to think about it in this aspect, in the point of view that he was trying to purvey, but it just was so flawed. Girl figures may not sell well as action figures because of the simple fact that people, and when I say people, I'm talking about the general public, does not see women characters as action figures. They see them as dolls. Now, that's a personal point of view for each individual to put themselves up to that mirror to say, oh, I was wrong about that. But it is what it is. Haha, the Todd wins and loses, but keeps fighting. Yeah. I mean, he took a lot of losses, but when he won big. That's the whole thing. But that's the key thing about it. But he keeps fighting. I never liked him as a writer. You can say that again. Because there's like I said, my one major flaw with Spawn, and I'm going to say this as as nicely as possible. How can you write a character that was so beloved when his powers were limited, but yet never go into his past correctly? You never talked about Al Simmons in the proper aspect here. Matter of fact, you eventually killed him off and gave the powers to somebody else because you refuse to talk about his background, mainly because I truly deeply feel this way, that he refused to do it because of the character's background. But it is what it is. Then like his impact on the comics on the 90s, but that's just me. I Aaron, you have not heard the spill that I normally go on about Image Comics in the 90s. Image Comics in the 90s, outside of the slice of life comic books like you have with like the Liberty Meadows, the Strangers in Paradise, and all of the other books like that, outside of that, the superhero stuff was a cancer. They were over glorified pinup stories that just people were so enamored with the artwork that they couldn't tell a good story behind it. But that's just me and Image Comics in the 90s. And like I said, it's like, seeing how Liberty Metals grew up under Image, seeing how Strangers in Paradise grew before Terry Moore took it to Abstract up under his own camp. And what hurts me more so about Terry Moore is that he forgot what he did with Lady Supreme. When I finally got a chance to talk to him and ask him questions about his career, he's like, I don't remember ever writing that. And I'm like, really? Wow. It's like I'm not a fan. I'm not that big of a fan of Strangers in Paradise. So I can't ask you questions about that. I can only ask you questions about the stuff that I have read from you. And this is the little known book that was called Lady Supreme. And you say, I don't even remember writing it. What did that tell me as far as the superhero class of comics that they had in Image in the 90s? They were forgettable. That's how I feel about it. I just read comics before the 90s mostly. I left during his ASM run, and would come back actually like an adjective less Spider-Man. I think 90s Spider-Man was not for, if you're like me, if you're a fan of Ditko Spider-Man, 90s Spider-Man was testosterone driven nonsense if you read 90s Spider-Man. But then again, it was more of a breath of fresh air when you get more to like Dan Slott. I know as many Spider-Man fans hate Dan Slott. Dan Slott did give us, to me, one of the greatest Spider-Man series ever with Superior Spider-Man. Whenever your one of your greatest villains give you props after becoming you for a period of time, just to conceal your own identity, it makes for a great story reading and a great re-envisioning of the impact of the character of Peter Parker. Yeah, the character development is so essential. Yeah, yeah. It's like I sometimes wonder what Spidey would be like if Ditko had his what had. Oh yes, my major thing about with Ditko, what would Spider-Man be like in his 20s and 30s up under Ditko? Would the whole thing about getting divorced for Mary Jane and all this other stuff happen? Would one more day actually end up happening up under Ditko? I don't think so. Would Mayday essentially take over the mantle? Things like that up under Ditko, I could actually see. He would actually think about you know the whole aspect of life, incorporating life into the superhero adventures. It makes me wonder. I like Superior too, but Scott would read the yeah, yeah, I get it. It's like I read too much like bubblegum too much. So yeah. That's why I don't like volume two of Superior Spider-Man. Volume one was excellent. It was excellent because he had to try to fight his normal response to things. To see him coming close to killing a lot of the people that he was pursuing, because he had to think Peter wouldn't do this. And it's like, this person is pushing me to the limit, and I know I could kill them, but Peter wouldn't do this. What would Peter do? Because it's like everything that once I put on the new costume with the extra appendages, I have to be like Peter. And then he was up here, it's like he was just admiring his life. It's like, this is a 16-year-old kid who worked his way up to get this job at this company, to have a wife like Mary Jane, which we're currently on the rocks to. And he forgoes the advances of all these other women who now think that he's cute, that he's worth something. The aspect of how Slot did all of that and wove all of that together. Now, mind you, he had practice with doing She-Hulk, but what he did in Superior Spider-Man was like chef kiss to what Ditko might have done. That's to me where I would go. Ditko might have leaned Peter into being a scientist more. I grew up with oh oh you grew up with more of the John Romita Jr. and Stern, and the Spidey was the loner then. But I agree with Uncle Ben. Spidey would not have gotten married at that time. Yeah, but then again, it's like when he graduated from high school, he would have gone to college, but we would have never known what he would have done after college up on the Dick, because there was a lot of things that could have been still dealt with up on the Dicko, with him being at what is it, ESU or ECU or something like that. Yeah, Uncle Roger's turn. Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't have gone to like they get married right away. He would have eventually graduated college. He would have actually established a lot. He would probably establish a lot more of the equipment that he used. The web shooter would have been a little bit more advanced. He would have had more technology. Um, a lot of the stuff dealing with uh, I can't even think of his name here, with Oscorp and Stark Enterprises would have took more precedence up under that aspect of him being more of a scientist. But I don't think the relationship between him and Mary Jane would have changed. Now, the one thing that I hated, during that time is that when they killed off Gwen Stacy, to me, Gwen Stacy would have been the person that, if he would have became the scientist, would have been more influential in his life than Mary Jane as a, budding actress type deal. But that's just me. That's just me as a whole. But that's kind of interesting aspect here. It's like, what would happen if certain writers, stayed on titles now? It's like, yeah, I love Ramita Senior in those years, but because Peter lost not only Gwen but Gwen's father. Yeah, yeah, her father died first. Yeah, I really wish that, and this is only my personal wish. This is kind of like me being selfish. I really wish that they would have cleared up the mystery behind Gwen's death, because in a way they set up the ultimate catch 22 for Peter. It was nothing that he could have done to save her. And the way that they illustrated everything proved that it was a catch 22, because even if even if he could have done something different, I believe it would have been the same result. Ultimately, Gwen would have died at his hands and not the goblin's hands. That was the misnomer in those panels here. It's like they were really trying to illustrate that Peter made the wrong choice of how to save Gwen. And there was nothing that he could have done in any aspect to really save her without hurting her in one form or fashion. But I could be wrong in that. I just really wish that they would clarify that the catch 22 was Peter couldn't do anything, as opposed to, oh, yeah, the goblin killed her before. That's like, no, Goblin did not kill her. Goblin didn't do anything. Goblin set Peter up to fail. Anything that he would have done to try to save her would have eventually killed her. Yeah, he wouldn't marry so soon. Yeah, it would have been way after. It would have been after he graduated college, had his degree, probably with at some laboratory. He probably will fall into his parents' footsteps to a certain degree before getting married. After all, he lost Uncle Ben. Yeah. But that's a good concept. It's like, would Dicko play up his understanding about loss? Because let's just say if Dicko was around and they did the whole thing about college, he went going to college, he set up his career and everything. By that time, Aunt May would have passed. By the time he would have got established in his career and everything, Aunt May probably would have passed. So now you have to deal with Uncle Ben has passed, Aunt May has passed, his first love, Gwen Stacy, has passed. The person that believed in him the most, Captain Stacy, had already passed. There's nobody there. There's nobody there to, for him to really have a solid relationship with, and it probably would have impacted anybody else that would have been around that wasn't around him, before all those people passing. Yeah, Aunt May should have passed too. Yeah, it's interesting how when you really think about Spider-Man in that aspect, especially from the aspect of Peter Parker, not the alter ego, but Peter Parker as a person. It's interesting. And I know how people, there's people who hated the dynamic of Mary Jane and Peter being together. To me, that was kind of like him being kind of balanced, because again, who's to say that somebody of Mary Jane's ilk couldn't have fallen for a person like Peter. You know, you know, uh, that's just like what you call it, the cheerleader, Liz, Liv or Liz actually fell for Peter at one time too. But then again, it's like Peter wasn't a loner because he was a loner. Peter was a loner more so because of the aspect of his intelligence and what he wanted to do in life. He wasn't the jock. He wasn't one of those kids that would have been, quote unquote popular. He would have had to been one of those kids that have to been discovered to be cool. But by the time he graduated for college and everything, he made something of himself. Characters like Liz and Mary Jane would have paid a lot more attention to him then, more so during high school. But you know, I don't know. I just look at it that way. I mean, I kind of look at it kind of like how Kirby looked at Fantastic Four and took a lot of the aspects of his life dealing with everyday living to promote the family aspect of the Fantastic Four. But it's interesting. It's interesting to do these revisitings of what it would be like if the writers who originally wrote them were still around today to write them. But then again, if Curry was still around to write the Fantastic Four, would we ever get Malice from for Sue being Malice? Will we get the aspect of Invisible Woman really being the most powerful one out of Fantastic Four? Because technically Kirby kind of set the stage up to the fact that even though she was technically the damsel in distress, her power was the most powerful one out of all four of them. But it is what it is. Yeah, Spider-Man became so popular that Stan Lee wanted Peter to be relatable, but it hamstrung the character. Not, I wouldn't say hamstrung it. I wouldn't say hamstrung it, but there's too much of a common denominator. It's like they wanted him to be like the typical 16, 17-year old instead of just being a 16, 17-year-old. They don't know what to do with Spider-Man now because they're forced to age him. Spider-Man can't be 16, 17 forever. He was forced to age. And because none of the original people who wrote them are still around to explain how he would grow up, people are just running amok with the character. That's the way that I look at it. Also, I live just off of a Yancey Street in real life. Yeah, yeah, just like there is a Hell's Kitchen too. Only reason I know that because I ate at diners in Hell's Kitchen, New York. Yeah, the Zeb Wells, the Remita ASM has been all crap. Yeah, crap. Now I know that Spidey isn't. Oh, again, there's only one Batman for me, and that Batman goes by the name that is not Bruce. It's by the name of Thomas Wayne. Bruce is an afterthought. Give me Flashpoint Batman all day, every day. I barely tolerate Bruce as a character. And what's weird is that modern day Wonder Woman pretty much talked about the greatest flaw of Batman. But that's a whole different story. So yeah, I know that Spider-Man isn't Batman that alone, but Spidey could have been more interesting as a crime fighter if he was more alone. I wouldn't say more alone, but if he kept his if I could say his philosophy. What if Spider-Man never became an international hero, that he was just nothing more than a neighborhood Spider-Man? You just don't go into Midtown doing some crap. Why? Because Peter would take care of you. What if Spider-Man never left Midtown? That he was stayed the Midtown hero just for that neighborhood. What if he didn't care about the rest of New York? That to me would be more of an interesting crime fighting story than anything else. Because again, he wasn't the New York Spider-Man. He was the friendly neighborhood, which means that he grew up in Midtown. He would defend it Midtown to his last breath. But it is what it is. But also, like I said before, with the whole thing about Batman, Diana said it best. Technically, he doesn't truly have a rogues gallery. Bruce just made poor decisions. His rogues gallery could have been non-existent if Bruce would have did the right thing. And if you don't know what I was referring to, there was a Batman issue where pretty much Diana and him was staking out some gang's hideout and everything, and they were coming to the point of talking about who had it worse as far as their villains is concerned. And she was like, well, when you think about it, you really don't have a rogue gallery. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, think about Mr. Freeze. All he wanted was just to save his wife. You're a multi-billionaire of a tech company. Why didn't you just give him the resources to help cure his wife, and he would have been a-okay? He would have never gone to the life of crime. With Riddler, why didn't you just help him to become the detective that he wanted to be? He would have never tried to out challenge you and outwit you as a crime fighter if he would have just helped him to get to the point where he would have been a crime fighter himself. When she started breaking that stuff down, I was like, "Yep, that's Batman's flaw. That's Batman's flaw." It's like, this is the reason why billionaire playboy who want to be vigilante does not work in his case. But that's just me. Yeah, that's interesting. I sometimes visualize Peter as a scientist more and learning and leaning into crime fighting. Peter's heart is important though. Yeah, you have to think about it. Peter's original heart when he first started was, he realized what Ben told him was correct. With great power comes great responsibility. I have these powers now. I need to be responsible for my actions. And the moniker of the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man would have fit. If he would just stay to crime fighting in Midtown, we don't know how deep the legend would have been with Spider-Man. Interesting, Bruce fails. Yeah, he fails a lot, but yet people love him. And I don't knock people for liking Bruce. I don't knock people for liking Bruce, but he has a lot of, from the psychological aspect, he has a very lot of feelings. And like I said, that the one story where Diana read on his rights as far as the poor choices that he made with his rogues spoke volumes of why he's not as good of a hero as what people make him out to be. Peter just does the right thing after he fell Uncle Ben. Yeah, he tries to he tries to do the right thing. And again, I always go back to the story of Spider-Man No More, where he got to the point where he couldn't figure out what the right thing was to do. So he quit. He's the everyman with a heart of gold. And that what makes Peter so lovable. Now, people might disagree with me with this, but in a lot of ways, Peter is kind of like Diana. Peter has a capability, just like Diana, to become the thing that is needed for the time at any juncture in an event. If he needs to be the protector, he will be the protector. If he needs to be the aggressor, he will be the aggressor. If the situation dictates a diplomat, he will be a snarky diplomat, but he'll be a diplomat nonetheless. But that's just how Peter is. Same as Diana. Yeah, Batman has a huge Bat family. Though every story is Bruce learns that he's not alone. Every story comes back down to Bruce don't trust anybody because I lost my parents. I'm still in my emotions. I'm still in my emotions, which I never really got over. And like Diana said, it's like half of this stuff could have gone away once you found out what the root cause of the problem was. You could have fixed it with your money and helped these individuals instead of put them away in Arkham and calling them crazy. You're just as much as insane as as your rogues gallery. But that's the failing of Bruce. Unlike his father Thomas in Flashpoint, where we get to see the real aspect of the Wayne family. And we understand why the Court of Owls is more dangerous than what they show in Bruce's day. But nevertheless, and I digress. Just like Flash run faster than he had run Flash faster than he ran faster than ever faster before. Wow. Oh boy. Oh boy. That was a good laugh. That was a good laugh. I can't say that for Barry, but for Wally, yeah. That was Wally West's story. I ran faster than he ever ran faster than before. Because, truth be told, Wally was the fastest Flash there ever was. And they had to kill him off. Why? Because he ran faster than he ever ran before in every story. Yeah, when examining Bruce, there are serious problems, but Batman, wherever we like it or not, is one of the greatest monster hunter archetypes. Yeah, that's what. Again, people like him because I have the resources to do the things that I do, which makes me the one, which allow me to be one of the greatest detectives ever. We don't have broke ass Batman stories trying to figure out things. We have rich Batman, a multi-billionaire Batman who has the resources to have all of these nice gadgets and stuff to get him past a lot of this stuff. That's one of the reasons why Bruce with Bruce with time and preparation is unbeatable, as opposed to, oh, he doesn't have the everyman syndrome. The average man would not be able to just to be like, have something sent to him overnight to be able to overcome this one villain because, he thought about every avenue that could be dealt with. But that's just me. I'm so sick of these Church of Batman do bros. Yeah. And no Alfred now, which is terrible. Well, no Alfred was bound to happen. What I would expect from no Alfred would be Bruce coming to himself, understanding that Alfred was more like a father to was more like a father to him than what he realized. But they not even want to do that. Yeah, I'm not the biggest bat guy, but it's almost a subconscious thing, part of the psyche. Yeah, I can see it. I can see it. I mean, I'm not the biggest Bruce fan, but once I started reading Thomas Wayne and Flashpoint and all the Flashpoint books, I have a respect for the Batman character up under Thomas and what Thomas brought to the table, and especially the letter that eventually propagated from Flashpoint universe to current DC, and how they did that story wise, bad writing. But I appreciate the fact of what Thomas was trying to relate to Bruce about wearing the cowl, because he understood that it's like if Bruce was still alive, things would have been completely different in his life, and that he still would have loved the fact that still would have loved Bruce with all his heart and all this other stuff, but he kind of knew what was going on between both universes, and he understood that his death left a big hole in his son's life in current DCU universe outside the Flashpoint universe. So that letter was impactful. Yeah, that time and prep bullshit, the Church of Batman Frank Miller crap. But it is true. That part is true only because, like I said, he's a billionaire. He's a so-called billionaire that has all these different resources and quote unquote remembers all the stuff that he studied and know how to functionally use them in the greatest of degrees here. There's so many variables that are just like, it's like, yeah, right, right. And but yet he doesn't understand, and Bruce doesn't understand that the Joker is nothing more but is himself, except with him looking in the mirror, except having the opposite aspect of what is good and what is bad. Thank you, thank you. Let's get to aka Patrick Eel O'Brien. Let's get to Patrick Eel O'Brien, aka Plastic Man. You are correct. Plastic Man is greater than Batman in a lot of ways. Why? Because Patrick in himself knew that he was a bad guy that was changed that was changed because of a heist gone wrong. and he made a name for himself. He made a name for himself by turning good. He was no longer the go-to safe cracker anymore. He was no longer that hooded character. Well, I should say hooded because he was a hood for many different mobsters and whatnot to go and break open these safes. He was a safe cracker for hire. But because that one heist went wrong and the chemicals and stuff did what they did to him, he learned how to deal with a lot of different stuff here. And eventually, by going through the motions and everything, he learned that he was immortal. And in an Injustice universe, he is the one of the most feared heroes in that universe. He was more feared than Insurgent Superman. Insurgent Superman was scared of Plastic Man. Yes, that is correct. He was more scared of Patrick Eel O'Brien because he was unpredictable. Eel may not be the Eel O'Brien may not be the smartest person in the room, but when hell comes to high water, I'd rather be on his good side than his bad side. But that's just me. No, Eel has a sense of humor. And then some of the villains that he had to fight, especially back in the days of like the 40s and 50s, it was just weird. It was just weird. But Plastic Man is Plastic Man. I just don't like the fact that nowadays they try to make him overly jokey. Yeah, the man has a sense of humor, but he's not an imbecile. He has a sense of humor and he doesn't take a lot of stuff seriously, but he's not an imbecile. He's rather intelligent. But, I guess that's the reason why people underestimate him. Now, the thing that I don't like, since we're going to bring up Plastic Man, I hate the fact of why we have Elongated Man in the DC universe as well. And we all know why we have Elongated Man. While we have Carl Dabney as Elongated Man. If you don't, then don't make me tell you why. I'd rather for you to look it up. Because you wouldn't believe me if I told you. Because if I told you that the only reason we have Carl Dabney as Elongated Man is because we had a editor at DC that was in charge of bringing new characters into Justice League of America, and he forgot that they had the rights to Eel O'Brien. Oh, we needed somebody that could stretch. Oh, let's go ahead and create this new character called Carl Dabney, and we could call him Elongated Man. Why can't we use Plastic Man? We don't have the rights for Plastic Man. You sure about that? I could have sworn that we bought the rights to Police Comics a while back. Nah, we don't have the rights for Plastic Man. We're going to create Carl Dabney and we're going to make him Elongated Man. And from that point forward, we have Elongated. So that would have meant that Plastic Man would have joined Justice League of America back in the 1960s. If that one editor would have remembered that DC had the rights to Plastic Man. Stupid. Why you need good editors at these companies? It is what it is. Anyway, I've been laying down some knowledge here for about almost we're getting close to an hour 50 minutes. Oh yeah, that was the other thing here. I'm on page 33 of the 52 page issue number 5 for Primetime Saturday Night. I finally got to the second tag team match of that docket, which means that there's only one more match after that. That is the main event here between Chief Mother Eagle and Slamazon. So we're getting close to having issue number 5 graphic wise completely done. I still have to write dialogue and stuff here, so we should have that book done over with before I could get to Amazonian number 8 as soon as possible here. So that's a good sign here. Outside of that, I probably end up going to. Oh, thank you very much, Aaron. I appreciate that. This is, like I say, I try to do my best to have an interactive show. It's like it's not about me sitting up here, flapping my gums here. I rather talk to you people out there who are like me, who are into comics, who either write, draw, you know, produce, or just an avid reader. There's so much stuff that we could talk about this industry that if that keep one another informed. We could share interests, share our stories. Heck, now I got you even looking for prudence and caution now. I got you into leave for prudence and caution. It's like I'm open to a lot of things. So it's like when people say it's like, hey, have you read this? And I think you might find it interesting. That's like I keep an open mind and go out and probably search for it just to see if I like it or don't like it. So that's what I try to do here. Yeah, the last time I did that, we ran 2 point. Yeah, yes, she would ask me those questions that would have me keep going. The show would keep going to like Monday 3 weeks from now. That's what Parallax do. I appreciate that, my friend. It's like, yeah, you're very knowledgeable, which I expect. Again, I hang around a lot of people who read books, and when I say that, it's like other shows that I'm a part of. I'm a part of other shows that people have been reading comics for years, and they update and they feed me knowledge. It's like, no, you got the wrong aspect of what actually happened in that issue. Let me show you what's really going on. And they will show me like, if they have the actual original pages, they would show me that. They would show me all the behind the scenes type stuff. So that's the reason why I know what I know here, because it's all about everybody has room at this table when it comes to comics. We sit down and we discuss, we we do what we can to share our love for the genre, whether it be characters that we like, don't like, feel like it's mad, but with all said and done, we're taking interest in one of what we see as interesting in what we love. And that's the cool thing about it. Yeah, I got Prudence and Caution. Yeah, yeah, but how you're streaming is the right way. A lot of the streams are not interactive. Unfortunately, what you're doing is good. And that's the way it's supposed to be. It's like you got people in the chat, engage your chat. This is how people become more and more interested in your stream. And like I said, I lost a lot of subscribers because of the mishap of my old college account. So I lost close to like 300 something videos because of that. Close to like 150 live streams and X, X amount of videos that I did on comics in general. But we're rebuilding and we're slowly getting our numbers back up here. I just need people to rediscover us again. Yeah, yeah. I'm not. It's like when I'm a table, I take up a lot of space. Yeah, with it, I'm not a table, but yeah, I take up a lot of space here. Yeah, I'm more so. You're more cerebral than me. You're down to earth about it. Right on. I mean, that's the way that it's supposed to be. It's like I can't be the Uber fan. If I'm the Uber fan, I won't be able to reach a lot of people. People who know me would understand why I love characters like Wonder Woman and Jessica Drew and all the characters that I like. I'm more geared to, even with my own comic books that I write, I'm more geared to writing women characters than male characters. because I find a lot of male characters boring. We all fall into all these particular archetypes, which was overdone. But with to me, women characters are hard to write, but they're more interesting to write, and you could share scenarios a little bit differently in a different aspect because you have to write it from a perspective that is not familiar to you. But that's just me. It's like you lost all those subscribers. That sucks. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ari. I appreciate the help. If you can help me get it back up to, I had close to 200 subscribers at one time here. Yeah, Leah, I will help Joe. If I can. Thanks for leading me. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I'm up here. I do these live streams really more so to promote the books that I do write and produce and put out there. All of our comics from the CGC Studios are out there on Comixology and Global Comics, but I don't have a physical distributor as of yet. So I'm not going through Diamond or through Penguin or any of those distributors as of yet. I haven't really been. Well, I'll take that back. I have been invited to try Diamond, but I heard too many horror stories to go that route. And then, I'm also doing a regular 9 to 5 job. So when I retire from that 9 to 5 job, I could go full bore and then come back to the whole thing about the physical distribution of the books and everything, and doing all the stuff that is need be for physical distributing. It's like I only deal with the best, Mr. AA Rod. That's why I go to your shows and triple C's. Yep. Yeah, your claim shows are one of the better ones that I have actually purchased from. To be quite honest here. Yeah, I should. Yes, I should link your company in the video in the video subscription. Yeah, I should. I should go back and do that here. But normally at the in the tail end when I end the broadcast, all that stuff happens at the very end of the video where you get to see the company links and how to get in contact with me and everything to that magnitude. So it's kind of you know hit or miss. It'd probably be easier just to put it into the description just to be on the safe side. So I just have to get a standard blurb to put in the description from this point forward. Okay, cool. Yeah. I think about these type of stuff. I just haven't, you know, really executed, at least on the actual description side. But the video itself, I have end cards and everything that shows where you could buy our books and everything to that magnitude. We even show you the books and everything. So it's kind of cool. I do a lot of post production video for work for this show as a whole, and for Comic Book Spectrum. That's the other show. I'm not certain what you're doing Thursdays, but I also host. And when I say host, it pretty much it's on my YouTube channel. I host Comic Book Spectrum, whereas myself and about 5 other individuals we get together. We talk about different stuff in geek culture and review comics as well. So it's kind of a small, if I could say, thank you to those who are writing, and contributing to the comic book industry. And, we try to review different things that, different books that come out each every month here. So every so often we do flashbacks to older books too. So yeah, thanks for the time, Joe. It's like, live the knowledge and talks. Yeah, I mean, we try to. I try to do all of that here. I'm outie. Have a great evening. And on that note, we're going to say have a good evening, everybody. We're almost at the 2 hour mark, and that's normally when we say our goodbyes here. Nice. I'll try to catch your show next time too. Yeah, nothing stopping for people from watching the if I could say the recorded broadcast of them. It's like it's out here on YouTube. Watch it at your own pace here. That makes me think about the other thing. I'm in episode 3 of Mr. McMahon on Netflix, and they're talking about a lot of stuff that I thought I knew about what was going on behind the scenes with WWE. But at the same time, I was like, wow, I did not know about that aspect of it, and how he actually felt about it. I mean, it's a good documentary. It's almost it's almost as if Netflix did not know about the last sexual allegation type stuff that came out about him, but it talked about everything else that's leading all the way up to what's happening now and some of the scandals and stuff that he had to get past. And it's interesting. It's interesting in how I can understand why a lot of people don't trust Hulk Hogan anymore. I could see that now from this documentary because it's just weird in that aspect here. But nevertheless, that might be something that we could probably have a sidebar on next week. Yeah, good night, everyone. Later, Joe, and all the best to you. The same to you here, Aaron. And are you having a sale on tomorrow? You are you doing a sale on tomorrow or not? Because if so, go ahead and leave the link for I could go ahead and tell people about it now. Tell people about it now, and then that way people could come to your claim show. Let's give it a few moments here before we call it a day. See if he's still there to do that. Monday, 3 p.m. Pacific. Do you have it scheduled? Do you have like the actual link scheduled on my channel? Okay, so go. So people look up the Cyclotronic Squirt Gun. That is the name of his channel, Cyclotronic Squirt Gun. 3 p.m. Pacific time on Monday. So, and my time that would be five. Yeah, that would be 5 o'clock. Be 5 o'clock my time, 6 o'clock Eastern. Yep, it's set up. I'll set up the link soon. Thanks. Not a problem. That's what we do here. We all try to help one another rise up. That's the whole part of the old Rising Tide network because like a rising tide lifts all ships here. And one of the things that Brian K. Morris, instill in us is that we all help one another. It's like we all part of the whole tide here. And it's like if one of us get lifted up, we all lifting up one another at the same time. So not a problem for me to mention the claim sale. Yeah, runs for 3 hours high and rewind times two for comics that did not get claimed. Yep, there you go. So everybody remember Psychotronic Squirt Gun, that channel, YouTube, Monday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern. Yep. I'm like Leia looking for the real types. Thank you. Yep. That's pretty much it here. So on that note, as I always say, live life, grow and be well. And we're out of here for another weekend. Also, make certain that you enjoy. I believe this is Columbus Day coming up Monday, so enjoy your Columbus Day if you do have it off. If not, enjoy it anyway. And until next week, we're out of here. Have a good rest of your weekend.